Hello, I'm MJAD. Welcome to Simply MJAD. And today our conversation is one of the things that we don't normally talk about, but we know that lurks around. Pretty much, I would say 1 out of 5, if not more. And we're here with Ms. Jennifer Rey. We're at AVDA, and she's going to tell us the meaning of AVDA herself, and she's the director. And we're going to have conversation as always. And Ms. Jennifer Rey, welcome to Simply MJAD.
Thank you.
Okay. Please tell us a little bit about what AVDA, what to do here.
Okay, so AVDA stands for Aid to Victims of Domestic Abuse, and we are a certified domestic violence center here in the state of Florida. We offer a 24-hour hotline, emergency shelter, 2-year transitional housing, outreach services, and violence prevention throughout Palm Beach County.
Okay. And then when we talk about, there's something here that when we talk about domestic violence, we're not, a lot of time people get that this is just for women or, and we're talking about overall. This has nothing to just do with women.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Men.
Absolutely. We know that 1 in 4 women, you were right, it is more. 1 in 4 women are victims of domestic violence in their lifetime. And I don't have the stat on specifically men, but we do know that men are victims of domestic violence as well at the hands of female partners as well as in same-sex relationships.
Okay. All right. And can you tell us a little about AND Steps?
AND Steps is our support, training, education for personal success. AND Steps is an economic empowerment program where we're looking to help individuals who have suffered domestic violence to overcome the financial abuse that has taken place in their life. So financial abuse could look like ruining somebody's credit or preventing them from having a job or preventing them from getting an education. And so what happens is we know that women experience on average a 72% decline in their buying power within the first year after leaving an abusive relationship. So we're trying to combat those things. We do a lot of life skills training. We help with resume writing, interviewing skills, going back to school, getting their GED, making sure they're linked with community resources for scholarships to go back to higher education. A lot of our women are going for renewals of nursing certificates, or they're going to PBSC. State college, yes.
Yes, state college. We don't have to get it right here. This is conversation. Life continue.
Yes. So they're going, they're just doing different things with their life. So we're providing lots of information and resources around, bouncing back financially from an abusive relationship.
What I think is extremely powerful here is what you offer, all the services that you offer, because a lot of time, the reason why women remain in those issues is because they've got nowhere to go. They don't see anything going forward. They don't see how they're going to better their lives, and a lot of time they return back to that same abuse.
Sure.
But then, with all these services that are here, I think that is a huge, huge contribution to assist them not to return to this horrific violence. Because as a teen in my early 20s, I volunteer. Women domestic violence, so I know I've seen a lot, and a lot of time, the majority were pretty much my age, and I couldn't even bear to understand at the time. And the thing was, why don't you get out? Well, then at the time I didn't have children. I didn't know what it was like to be, at the hands of a man beat me and let me know that I was worth nothing. So I was saying I couldn't understand that. But as I get older too, I step back, to take a look. And when you do have children, that's a given. You got to provide for that child. You don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes perhaps it's a car that person doesn't have. They rely for transportation.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things before we point the finger.
Absolutely.
And so I believe what you're doing here is you're just super amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And our emergency shelter is a 6-week program, but one of the things that our organization has recognized is that 6 weeks is just not enough time in order to rebuild from an abusive situation. Some people, absolutely, they come in, they already have a job, and they're set a little bit. They just need to get away, get a safe place to live, be able to find another location to go, and get an apartment. Others have more challenges. We don't require people to have documented immigration status. And if you're undocumented in this country, you're not going to be able to move on in 6 weeks. Some people come in, I have pregnant women coming in, they're 4 or 5 months pregnant, they're on bed rest. We're not going to ask them to leave in 6 weeks, right? So we're going to keep them longer as they need, depending on their circumstances. So that's one of the nice benefits about AVDA, is that we recognize that people need more time than simply 6 weeks in certain situations.
And how you found it, to get the assistant to do
Sure.
this is huge.
It's big. We run on, it takes us $2.2 million a year to run.
And it could be more.
A
lot more.
we run a tight ship for $2.2 million, right?
Yeah.
It's a very streamlined program.
I can imagine.
But our funding sources are from the state level to some federal grants to local community foundations. But I will be honest, we rely heavily on private donors because grants will tell us that we can have staff members and we can pay the lights and we can, pay the water bill and we can, do some basic financial assistance for our participants. But, sometimes they just need $300 to get out of Dodge. They just need to get to New York to where their family is. And that's really hard money to come by in a grant. And so our private donors who make cash donations are, really valuable to us in that way.
So is there different funding that you can start? Let's say you start creating a scholarship simply for those who just really simply want to get out of town and go back home?
We ourselves don't do that. If the people in the community wanted to do that, that would be fine. One of the organizations, Women for Excellence, actually started the scholarship fund for women to go back to school.
Oh, wow.
So they're able to apply for scholarships there. So what usually happens is people will donate, whatever comes from their heart, and those to us are unrestricted dollars. So that allows us to do the creative things that sometimes women need that, grants don't always allow.
So how does volunteering? Do you accept volunteering?
Absolutely.
You're open to
Volunteering is a little tricky. As a state certified center, we actually have very high level privileged communications and confidentiality with our survivors. So that's a really nice benefit. So when we have volunteers come in, they can do a range of things, but not the core direct services unless they go through a 30-hour training plus maintain 16 hours of training every year. Right. And so a lot of times volunteers don't want to make that commitment. So what we actually do is we have, through our And Steps program, one of the components is a volunteer, let's say like yourself. You introduce yourself to me as a writer and a communicator, right?
Yes.
You may want to go in and do a one-time group with the women. We'd have staff in the room so that the conversation, that would be great. So that the staff are in the room to make sure that the conversation about domestic violence, if it does come up, that the women are reminded, listen, if you speak with MJ about this, it's not privileged communication. So let's say you come in and you do a writing group, how to write and get your feelings out on paper or poetry or something, right?
Wow.
Right? So if you did something like that.
I would assist them how to publish with a go-about, money free to publish. Oh, yeah.
Right?
I'm in.
Right?
Yeah.
And so people come and they share their talents in a one-time presentation. That doesn't mean you can't come back, but just meaning like once a month you might come in and because our population rotates, people do those kinds of things.
I really love that.
Yeah.
Okay, now I know you're encouraging the use of men and boys to help stop violence against women. Can you tell us a little about that? I think that's extremely powerful.
That is a brand new initiative, although not to say that we haven't been doing it, but we actually just awarded a federal grant from the Office on Violence Against Women. It's a 3-year initiative to engage men and boys to prevent domestic and dating violence. My coworker and I just got back from New Orleans. We spent 3 days with national organizations teaching us all the techniques. And, the thing is that we don't raise in our culture men and boys to have what we've labeled feminine qualities. So caring, compassion, nurturance, empathy. They're only allowed to
be boys.
Right. They're only allowed to do that, right? They're only allowed to express.
And a lot of time people say, see, I've got both genders I have my girls and I have my boys. And my girls cut grass and they wash dishes. My boys cut grass, they wash dishes. It's like to let them know. And also have conversation, how to be men and women. But a lot of time I've heard people say, oh, he's just being a boy. What does being a boy pushing a girl has to do with being a boy? And then he grew up thinking that now he starts slapping a woman. Hey, he's just being a man. Yeah. My mom said I was just being, nothing wrong with slapping someone. So I think that, began to at home with parenting as well.
Yeah. So the process is actually that we're going to be working with young men and, young men, under the age of 24, and boys, and we're going to be looking for programs with male mentors, adult male mentors. And we actually are working with Omega Psi Phi as a partner. It's a fraternity, and they have a Lamplighters mentoring program. Okay. And so because the mentoring program already exists, what we're going to do is help infuse the concepts around healthy masculinity and healthy nonviolent dating relationships into their already existing mentoring program. We have some funds in there for public awareness campaigns. We're going to be bringing in national speakers and holding an event so that they can, so for example, Byron Hurt is actually Omega Psi Phi, which is interesting enough. He went to Northwestern University, got involved in Mentors in Violence Prevention, and created a documentary called Hip Hop Beyond Beats and Rhymes. So he specifically looks at men and masculinity and sexism in the hip hop culture, right? And so he would be a really cool speaker to come in and work with the youth that we're working with out of the city of Boynton Beach to just have a conversation about that, right? I'm not really going to be the person who's going to really engage men and boys, but other men who really believe that violence against women and girls is inappropriate, is a crime, is something that we need to, as good men who would never hurt a woman, need to hold other men accountable to make sure that they don't do it as well. Those are the kind of individuals we're going to be bringing in to work with us.
And the message will be walk away before somebody puts you away, because there really is a price to pay.
Sure.
We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Conversation with Jennifer Rey at AVDA. Wow.
We hope that you will consider joining us at AVDA's 9th Annual Heart of a Woman Luncheon, celebrating 30 years of service. This year it'll be on Wednesday, January 20th at 10:30 in the morning at the Boca Raton Resort and Club.
Tickets can be purchased by visiting avdaonline.org or by calling 561-265-3797. We hope to see you there.
Welcome back. As we said, the subject matter, which is can be, pretty much enrolling. And I'm feeling this today in a way. And if you have someone out there that you know is in experience abuse, you would know how sensitive this is. And that could be your daughter, it could be your sister, your mother, it could be your brother, So, yeah, it's a sensitive matter for me. And if I seem a little bit off today, it's okay, because life happens. And we're back with Ms. Jennifer Rey to continue our conversation. Okay. And I love the name Jennifer. I always call people Jen. So if that's
okay, not a problem.
Love the name Jennifer. I used to have a little friend named Jennifer. She was blonde and come on, play him too. Come on. And I barely spoke English at the time. But, yeah, but we were so close. Okay, so we know there are many people that has passed through AVDA. And we don't really, we're not going to release any information. We know that as a professional, as a person in humanitarian work. Is there someone that passed through that left some sort of imprint on you? I know there's so many. It's hard to just grab one, but
for a lot of the years that I was here, I was out in the community doing the education and the prevention work. And about 8 years ago, I was pregnant, and I was literally about 8 years ago now, I was about to give birth to my first child. And they said, you need to cancel your calendar because you need to be sitting right at a desk. And I said, no, let me go do my work, No, because if you go into labor, then who's going to do your job, right? We don't have anybody to fill in for you. So just cancel your stuff, sit down. So I was sitting in the office, and we get a knock at the door, and another person who works in our building, we rent here, and at other offices as well, knocks on the door, and her daughter is in an abusive relationship in New Jersey, and they need someone to help. And so I was the one who was available because I didn't have anything going on. And so I went over to her office, and we started talking. You have a child involved in that situation. You don't want to get in trouble for kidnapping and all of that stuff. And so we worked to get her and her daughter and her granddaughter down here safely. She entered into our shelter and was successful in that program. Actually went into our 2-year transitional housing program. Stayed with us for about 18 months till she was able to get back on her feet and got a job again in the hotel industry. Moved out with her daughter and still calls a couple times a year at all the holidays, sends cards. And we do a holiday store every year because even though people are back on their feet, that doesn't mean that you have the extras to buy for the holiday time for your children. And so we run a holiday store. Nothing is charged. It's all donations, but they get to go and shop for what they want to give to their children.
Here?
We do accept clothing. During the holiday times, we like to bring in new items so that we can put it in our holiday store. We take used, gently used items as far as donations throughout the year.
Okay.
So she still comes around. As a matter of fact, you know, she'll be honored at our Heart of a Woman luncheon. We're celebrating 30 years of service in January.
I was about to ask you. That's another question I had here for your IQ cards. Yeah, tell us about that. You know, it's coming up in January.
Yes, so January will be our 30 years of service. We opened in 1986.
Okay.
Started with a hotline and 12 emergency shelter beds.
Wow.
We now run our hotline. We have 63 emergency shelter beds. We have 32 transitional
housing. And we
housing.
can have more. We need more.
We're full. We are at
more.
capacity in our shelter right now.
Dig in those pockets.
Yes.
And I hear people say that it's the holidays, time to give. I say give every time throughout the year because violence happens throughout the year.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is going to be a big gala.
It is. We do it every year, but this year we'll be celebrating our 30. So it's 30 years, 30 faces. And so we're honoring survivors and board members and our police officers who are on our side and our school teachers who have consistently let us come in and do work with their kids in the school. So lots of people will be recognized that day in the program, and we'll have them all stand up, and just their program guide will tell their story and why they're involved in our agency and what brings them to keep going in this kind of work.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the law enforcement. You know, you just mentioned that, you know, that does support, you know, how does that work? Because I know sometimes it can be a very difficult situation.
Yes.
You know, where their job is not easy either.
No.
You know, to come and say, you know what, you need to go, or I'm taking them to. That's not easy. It's not that cut and dry.
And domestic violence is one of the most dangerous calls for law enforcement to go out on.
Because they don't know what they're going to run into.
Yes. So we're very lucky here in Palm Beach County. Our Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office has their own domestic violence division. So while they don't specifically respond to every domestic call, they are also training within that department in the entire Sheriff's Office. The sheriff is out at every one of our Domestic Violence Awareness Month opening ceremonies, and he's very committed to the cause. Our state attorney's office is very committed to the cause. They have the DOVE unit, which is the Domestic Violence Elimination Unit. And so, you know, we have 2 local chiefs on our board of directors here at AVDA.
Okay.
So we're very committed to making sure that they understand that their role in domestic violence, while very dangerous, is extremely critical. And responding to victims in a very trauma-informed way is really important. And they're committed to that here.
Okay, let's say that, you know, a little example, like there's a child that know mommy's being beaten at home, and they really don't have anywhere to go, and so they mention it with their teacher. How would that go about? If that child is witnessing that abuse, perhaps him or herself too,
right.
How would they go, you know, without being afraid, you know, to communicate with that teacher? Is it okay for the teacher to reach out here and say, you know what, this is what this child have told me?
Yeah.
See, that's where it gets really complicated, you know?
The teachers, unfortunately, I mean, we want our young people to have adults that they trust and will connect with in their community, and teachers usually are those individuals, which is wonderful. Teachers wouldn't reach out to us. They would actually need to contact the child abuse hotline because witnessing or being exposed to domestic violence in that capacity, when a child discloses, would be a reportable item to the Department of Children and Families. What we do also have here at AVDA, though, that's really great, as well as, I should say, this is a project that the Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence is committed to and has secured funding to run in all 67 counties here in Florida. We have a specialized domestic violence child welfare advocate. Her role is actually that she's co-located within the child welfare system. So when calls come in about domestic violence in the home affecting a child or being a danger to a child, the child welfare, child protective investigators and their supervisors have access to our domestic violence advocate to make sure that we can do everything we can to get the victim, the non-offending parent, and the child out of the situation and into safety while holding the perpetrator accountable. because we know that children are much better off in their own homes with their own parent away from the abusive person. So,
do you know how important your job is?
I think so.
And if anybody were to say, celebrity, this is one why I have conversation with ordinary people that live extraordinary lives, and you're one of them, because the difference you make in other people's lives. Do you know how important you are? The decisions you have to make every day. No,
yes.
I think you are. If it's celebrity status, then I want a little signature from you. Because you are doing an extremely good job.
Well, and I will say, I have an amazing team and an extremely supportive CEO. This doesn't happen with one person.
No,
this is a team of women, and we have men who work here that, just make this work every single. They make me look good, is what I say. My CEO says the same about me, but I say that about my staff. They make me look good.
Too. They make me look good as well. My team make me look good, and I know you're expanding. So tell us about that.
We just finished our expansion. We're looking to continue that process through our outreach programs, but our emergency shelter just expanded. We went through, before the expansion, we had a 1955, 5-bedroom, single-family home. It had seen its time.
Yeah.
It was in rough shape. We had been operating out of it for 30 years, so it was a lot of people who came through that house.
A lot of memories.
Yes, and that was the hard part about tearing it down, was people put their memories on the wall and they wrote and said, yes.
A lot of healing happened there as well.
So we tore that building down. We were awarded a grant from the state, capital campaign grant from the state, to rebuild, and that was the sort of seed money, I would say, because of course your initial budget in building is one, and then it grows. So we actually we budgeted for 1.2 million, and we went to 1.4. So we're still trying to raise those last $150,000.
And we know there are wonderful people out there that's going to give that money.
So we're looking for that last $150,000 to pay it off. But we actually tore the building down, and we built an 8-bedroom, 9.5 bath house. Every bedroom has its own private bath, so that the women have more privacy, right?
Some people have issues with bathroom. I'm one of them.
Yeah, you don't want to share it with a whole house full of people, right? We have a kitchen that has the back wall that looks out to the children's playground, brand new children's playground.
Oh my.
Beautiful, very fun. That looks out to the children's playground. His 2 working stations, so 2 stoves, 2 dishwashers, 2 kit sinks, and then windows, so that as they're cooking, they can see their children, right? Because otherwise, their kids would have to be with them at all. They have to be able to see their kids at all times. So we wanted to make it easy.
Trauma too.
Right. We wanted to make it easy for them to see their children wherever they were. So it's an open concept. I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah, me too.
We had all stainless steel custom cabinetry made, because if we have a leaky water, we don't want it to rot out the cabinets, right? We learned a lot over running a building for so many years. We also have a quiet room where women can go just to kind of get away from the chaos.
Tea, perhaps.
Have tea, play a game with their children without everybody around. Read a book. And then we have
thoughts.
Write their thoughts. And then we have a phone in there they can use to call out to friends and family. Of course, private line, and it doesn't say where they are. And 2 of the bedrooms are downstairs, so that anyone who has a disability can easily access those. We have cribs.
And this one is pretty much for women only.
Our physical shelter, we bring in women and children only. When we serve male victims, we utilize other resources, only because we don't have the space to, right, so it's not set up in that way. But that's our new building. We actually have 2 buildings on the same property. So while we were tearing that one down, we were operating out of our other building, and that has 6 2-bedroom apartments. That's only 10 years old. We built that as well. That building has 2 of the apartments for emergency shelter. The other 4 apartments are what we use for transitional housing. So between the 2 buildings, we house 95 women and children at a time.
Well, you know what? I am aiming for more and much more. And hopefully someday we'll be talking, and I return here, that we do have a home for meals as well.
That would be great.
And all that. So what would you
Maybe
look at?
one day we'll talk when we're selling the building, because domestic violence doesn't happen.
Oh, from your lips to God's. Can you look in that camera, please, and tell any woman that's out there that is going through that and what they can do, that there is help.
There is help.
There's a little legwork sometimes you got to go through, but don't give up. Tell them.
Come to us. I was working with a woman yesterday who was with us for a week and a half, got overwhelmed, and went home. She came back to pick up her stuff, sat down with me, we started talking. She had her head cleared. We talked about all the resources and options, and she came back yesterday. So come, there's help. Our hotline is 1-800-355-8547. We are here all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can talk. You don't have to come to shelter. We can just answer questions. Just reach out. We're here for you.
Thank you, Jen. Okay. And then I'm going to read this quote, and I'm so sorry. It's about empathy. And empathy is the most mysterious transaction that the human soul can have, and it's accessible to all of us. But we have to give ourselves the opportunity to identify, to plunge ourselves in a story where we see the world from the bottom or through another's eyes or heart. And that's by Sue Monk. And then I am MJAD Aldermore. I would like to thank you guys for Simply MJAD. And remember, the life you save may be your own or someone that you love as well. So take care of one another and keep your hands off someone unless it is a hug. Have a great day.